God has remained in Shamayim. In fact, in a recent program, one of the things we learned is that God said, I'm out of here. I think it was through the prophet Hosea. I've had my fill of you. I cannot stomach your religiosity anymore. Judaism is what ultimately pushed Yahweh away. He says, I'm just not going to tolerate this. I'm going to go to Shamayim and I'm going to hang out here. And I'm going to do so until you're receptive to listen to me again, until you come to know my name, what I'm offering, who I am working with, and are just receptive to me. And of course, that throws the ball into our court, because that is the purpose of the man from Edom, of the Choder, of Yahweh's Nakar, of Yada, is to reintroduce Yisrael to Yahweh. And between now and that time, we just are going to have to recognize that Yahweh is going to stand apart from Yisrael. All of these posts that you read in social media that G-D or Hashem has Israel's back. No, it's not true. He will eventually, but not as Hashem, not as G-D. He's only going to rally to Yisrael's defense when Yisrael stops erasing his name and returns to him and accepts him as he is, which means they will have to reject Israeli politics and Judaism as a religion. So God has remained in Shamayim. He's left Israelites to wallow in their religious and political disorders and overall bitterness and defiance. Another 2,449 years would pass before God would engage again. And on Towrah in 2001, he reached out, indirectly to God's people through a goy, just as he had foretold in the Torah and throughout the Nabi. Yahweh remains committed to calling his people home through the words of the prophets, while exposing the impediments which now clutter the way. The resulting 25-year mission has already left a legacy of 35 books that are on the shelf at YAHOWAH.com, all offered freely, along with many thousands of hours of audio programs in support of them. In fact, recently, someone was kind enough to post 2 radio interviews that I did, some of the last that I had done some 6 years ago, and the message is really quite clear. So we've been doing this for a long time. In fact, you can go back now 24 years when I started doing radio, and there are some 6,000-7,000 hours of talk radio interviews, all trying to reintroduce Yisrael to Yahweh. And now, of course, as part of the Yahweh blog, we have some 300 hours of video programming to try to reacquaint Yahweh with Yisrael so that God can return to his people. And as promised, Yahweh has re-engaged in this process, doing so for the moment. He found someone to add Asher Shamar, who was willing to closely examine and carefully consider the way to receive the benefits of the relationship through, the restoring witness to his eternal testimony. As a result, Israelites are beginning once again to bakash panah, to seek after Yahweh's presence, responsibly investigating and learning about God's reappearance. It has played out exactly as he foretold 27 centuries ago. What we are still anticipating and have not yet seen is a individual or individuals within Yisrael who are active in the community in either the media or social media that gravitate towards this message that we are presenting as part of the Yahweh blog, and that we have written in the books that sit behind me, and serve as a means of amplification of our voice within Yisrael. Because I can tell you that while we are developing a wonderful community and family on Facebook, we will by Passover reach 2,500 followers on Facebook, which, considering the fact we made our first post there only 90 days ago, is a pretty reasonable achievement for someone who has never figured out really how to use social media, who avoided it like the plague and has done no advertising thus far on the platform. And Facebook is the most preferred social media platform in Israel. Places like X, I mean, that's a swamp. It is a very different environment where there's all manner of hostility. There are several popular pro-Israel accounts, probably between 5 and 10 of them. But so far, while we are interacting with them and getting feedback and communicating back and forth, those who manage those sites are either too political, too religious, too militaristic to be open to Yahweh's message to them, because they will have to give up those things and trust and rely on Yahweh, as opposed to the IDF, as opposed to their favorite political party, as opposed to the rabbi, if they're going to be part of this solution. While many will continue to respond, when we are having an unprecedented growth in the covenant family at this time, over the next 2 years, certainly over the next 15 months, 14 months, and many will be included in the Shabuah harvest of standing grain in May 2026. There will be, even after that, 2 additional opportunities for those who miss this ultimate expression of Yahweh's love. However, with death-stalking Jews everywhere on earth, the risks of waiting around are very high. If I were you and I was a Yisraelite, I would capitalize on this opportunity to know Yahweh while he can be known. And that's his direct advice to you in those exact same words. Come to know Yahweh while he can be known. There's only 8 years left in which he can be known, but during that time, the population of Israel is going to be decimated. According to the prophets, 2 out of every 3 Israelites and Jews are going to die. And well, that sounds horrific, and it is. I mean, we're talking about the deaths of in the range of 10 million people. In reality, the fatalities amongst Jews are going to be far less per capita than among Goyim. I think that, well, it's not specifically stated because it's not Yahweh's primary concern, but I wouldn't be surprised if 90% of the world's Gentile population fails to survive to 2033. It's not going to be Yahweh's doing. It'd be Yahweh's lack of doing. It's man's doing. We are on the cusp of world war in so many ways. We're pushing Russia and China into it. We're on the cusp of it with Iran. And of course, we have pushed Russia into a very difficult position as well. And now we're dealing with an almost insane trade war where I think now the duties on China are well over 100% and maybe up in 150%. This is frightening territory because in the past, these kinds of terrorists have been the catalyst to war. So the next ingathering of Bakurim, firstborn children, will be Sa'ar during the time of troubles, as Israel is narrowed and Jews are besieged. The Souls gathered and withdrawn, shakar, will approach by earnestly seeking God, longing to learn about the relationship that he has envisioned for his people and that he has articulated to us, which we are sharing with you. For those who respond to the invitation to attend this Shavua harvest in May 2026, 22nd of May, a Shabat to be exact, when God does his best work, and eternity with Yahweh and the Bereth Covenant family awaits. Thereafter, aside from the final 7,000 Yehudim, which I think will be the best estimate of that number we will finally reach, although I would love for it to be 10 times that, who will be among the dwindling remnant who return to Yahweh 7 years later during Towrah, just 10 days prior to the Kippurim return and homecoming of Yahweh and Dod in 2033. Well, there will be no opportunities after that. All remaining souls will either be extinguished or incinerated, or they will enter the millennial Shabbat as workers, but not with the opportunity for a life throughout eternity. So we're really working on a very short timeline at this point. Today, Yehudim are emerging from their nightmarish past, opening their eyes, walking away from religion and politics, and becoming observant. And for this reason, Yada Yahowah was prepared, and it was published for this reason. And for this reason, the Yahowah blog is our primary focus. It is also telling that the comprehensive rewrites of Goddamn Religion and Twistianity and the completion of the Coming Home series of Volume 3 and the current writing of Volume 4 and the final edits of everything we have composed in Yada Yahowah through that time are all being completed as the sun sets in Jerusalem on the Shabat of May 22nd, 2026. I think the only thing that remains at this point is the completion of Volume 4 of Coming Home, which I am about a third of the way through at this point. So I'll finish it in time, I think. And it is, of course, the essence of the programs I'm doing on the Choder and on the Man from Edom. And I just finished the full translation of Mashal Proverbs 14, which is actually a more comprehensive presentation on the Choder than was presented by Yashayah 300 years thereafter. So we have a lot to learn, a lot to enjoy as we continue to go forward. Those who have anticipated and accepted the conditions of the Bereth, who attend Yahweh's Mikre and who are guided by his Torah, are all going to have a ringside seat for the Great Awakening as it plays out in successive events during the commitments and the conclusion of the time of Jacob's troubles, both at the beginning and again at the end. A traumatic period introduced in the 30th chapter of Yashayah will be manifest. Now, should you wish to mark your calendars and meet with Elia and Yada, well, they're going to arrive on the 4th of April in 2030. This is Abib 1 in year 5997 Yah. And we're going to serve under Dod's instruction during the final 3.5 years, addressing the times and a half a time reference at the conclusion of Daniel to prepare Yisrael for Yahweh, such that he can restore his relationship with Yisrael.